Hello viewers, this is Marquez and thank you for still being here with me. I wanted to finish the video earlier, but in case you didn't notice from my voice, I caught a cold and I'm still recovering. What's ridiculous is it's 29 degrees Celsius outside. I'm not kidding. Regardless of that, I'm glad I can finally finish the video. Now, we're starting our video series on the writing section. I've asked you guys to send me your sample responses and I did receive them from you, so I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's taking the time to send the writing. In this very first video, we will just look at some common mistakes people make as we go through the scoring criteria of the writing section. As I said, I'd pick one of the responses I received and give my honest feedback. I'll do that at the end of the video, but I don't want to just ignore the other pieces of writing I received. You guys have put so much effort on that letter, so I thought I would also use some of the sentences in the letters while discussing the scoring criteria. So let's dive in. If you go to the official CELPIP website, you will see that they have 4 categories when evaluating the written responses of the test takers: content coherence, vocabulary, readability, and task fulfillment. When I talk about those, I'll sometimes refer to our sample questions to illustrate my point. If you haven't seen the sample question yet, you can read it once again here. Number 1, content and coherence. In task 1, we're asked to write several different things in the form of a letter. As far as the content and coherence, your writing is evaluated based on the ideas you created, the organization, and the supporting details. First, the number of ideas and quality of ideas. Immediately, we can safely infer that we need more than one idea in our writing. One is not enough. Using our last sample question, the instruction tells us to introduce the charity and explain what they do. Let's say I picked BC Children's Hospital Foundation. One of you guys wrote, "Our charity provides a wide range of services to help children in need in a variety of settings and situations." I would say this description lacks a little bit of details. I probably should explain what they do by mentioning a few things they're involved in, such as providing healthcare services to children from low-income families, conducting research to combat childhood diseases, and so on. This is better than just simply saying helping sick children in British Columbia or what we just read earlier. By expanding on what they do, you get to use more vocabulary. With regards to the quality of ideas, you want to present ideas that are realistic and present them clearly. Imagine that you're writing this letter in real life. That's how you should approach this task. Think about who you're writing to. Here's another sentence from one of our viewers. "Your products are key to keep the charity auction such a success. For this reason, I would like to request a donation of 5 printers and 10 notebooks." I would say in this example, the writer is a bit too direct, and maybe that's not what we do in real life. Rather than that, here's a suggestion of how we can maybe improve the sentence. "Your donation is key to make the charity auction a success. To meet our funding goal of $10,000, we set a target of partnering with at least 5 sponsors to donate items for the charity." If we're just saying to them that, "Oh, we want 5 printers and 10 notebooks from you," that sounds like, well, I don't know, maybe we're like a thief. We're asking them to give 5 printers and 10 notebooks. So I think that's not the most natural or not the most common way of asking people or companies to donate. Alright, let's move on. The organization of ideas. When you're writing a letter to someone, you need to write in a way that is logical and easy to understand. Do not jump back and forth between ideas. Explore one idea fully before you move on to your next topic. In our sample topic, I think it would make sense for us to introduce the charity first before we're asking someone to make a donation. You wouldn't want to donate to something you have no clue about, would you? So let's compare these two organizations. and you can tell me which one you think makes more sense. So the first one starts by introducing the charity and then describing the event, saying the time or the place, and then mentioning the attendees. But the second one starts by mentioning the attendees, followed by time and place, then you introduce the charity before you finally describe the event. So what do you guys think? Hopefully, all of you would agree if I say the first one makes more sense. And that's how you should organize your ideas. If you're having difficulty in organizing your ideas, I think it's good to slow down, maybe write down what you've come up with, and take a look at what might be the best way to organize them. I think rushing is not going to help you here. Now, the examples and supporting details. I think everyone knows what this is. You want to give enough details so that the readers can understand what you're trying to say. Don't leave your main idea without any explanation. I think it's like serving a poutine without the gravy. The readers will be left disappointed here. And as I said earlier, do not end the topic with just one sentence. If you find it difficult, you can always ask yourself some probing questions related to the topic. Come up with other questions using the WH question words: who, what, where, when, why, and how. With our topic, here are maybe some example of questions you can come up with that you can include in your letter. Moving on to the second category, vocabulary. There are 4 different things listed here, but I'll just talk about all 4 at the same time because they're interrelated. This may be one of the most challenging parts for people who score low in the writing section. A lot of times, I see students trying to use difficult high-level words because they're trying to impress the grader. Unfortunately, many fail to understand perfectly how they're supposed to use the words or phrases. And when you use them incorrectly, it ends up hurting your score rather than boosting your score. There are many words in English that have similar general meaning, but they have subtle differences. If you're able to show to the grader that you understand those differences, good for you. It will help you move up to a higher band. I encourage you to use some phrasal verbs and prepositional verbs too in your letter. But how can we do that? Well, I would say read a lot. You can read newspaper articles on a variety of topics, but maybe not entertainment, gossips, or sports. Topics like economics, health, politics, business, life and culture, I think they're all good. Here are some examples to illustrate what I just said, and some of them are taken from the sample writing we got. Instead of saying, donating to this great charity, maybe you could use donating to this great cause. And somebody wrote the phrase, the most expected event. The right expression here would be the most anticipated event, because people are looking forward to it, people want to know what it's like, so the word anticipate is more accurate than expected. Another one, it's just a problem of using the right word. The person used the word propaganda rather than advertising platform in this case. Propaganda usually is a piece of information that is spread to others, but typically the purpose is to mislead others. But in this case, we're just talking about advertisement, not misleading, not lying to people. So we should say, I also would like to highlight that the auction is an excellent advertising platform for your brand. Here are some other examples showing the importance of your word choice. Rather than saying to let people know about the challenges, we could say to raise awareness of childhood illnesses. Let's take a look at one more. So here we're comparing the phrase to make money with the phrase to raise money. To make money means to earn profit, but we're talking about a charity here, so they're not really looking for profits, but they are collecting. They are raising money. If you use the word raising money, it is more precise. Next is the readability. Is it easy to read? There are a few things they look at when they assess the readability. Number 1. Format and paragraphing. Use paragraphs to group your sentences based on the ideas discussed. Here, I'll talk just about writing a letter. In a letter, we start with a salutation like, "Dear so-and-so." Then, you have your opening paragraph in which you explain the reason why you're writing the letter. Next, you have the body of the letter containing details of the letter, followed by a closing paragraph to summarize the intent of the letter. To finish off, you'll have a closing phrase like, "Best regards," just before your name. That is the standard form of a letter. For the purpose of the exam, you need to follow that. And from the samples I received from you guys, I don't really see any problems with regards to format and paragraphing. So we're going to move on to number 2, connectors and transitions. To help readers understand easily, the use of linking words or transitions is important. The challenge is to use linking words naturally instead of overusing them. You don't need to use them in every sentence. Let's take a look at an example here. So the writer used the phrase "when it comes to." For that, you need to use the gerund form after rather than a verb. In the second example, I think it's better if you put the phrase "given that" in the beginning because the first clause is the condition or the reason why the second clause happens. 3. Grammar and sentence structure. Because this is a writing test, of course, grammar and structure are important. Here are a few types of mistakes that I often see when students write their letters or essays. Number 1, choosing the right tenses. In this case, maybe present tense versus past tense. Number 2, using the right forms of words, whether they should be nouns, verbs, or adjectives. And number 3, incorrect constructions of complex or compound sentences. To show you what I mean, let's have a look at some more sentences here. In the first sentence, the word prestigious should be used because that's the adjective form. In the second one, the person was not being careful. Of course, we have to use the infinitive form after the modal verb will. And the last one is actually just an example of how you can use a complex sentence. And this is also one of the sentences that you guys sent me, except I made a few changes here. Last but not least, spelling and punctuations. Rather than making a long discussion about this, I'll just show you some examples of mistakes I saw from the responses. The first one, it's a name of a foundation, so all letters should be capitalized with the exception of the word "of." And the rest, I will just highlight them here. The last criteria is the task fulfillment. Essentially, they look at how well you follow the instruction given in the question. In our example, you're asked to talk about 3 different things. You need to be careful not to go off topic. When you go off topic, obviously, that will lower your score because what you're writing is irrelevant. Because there are 3 questions, you need to talk about all of them and do not skip even one. That is what they look for when they assess the completeness. So when you're missing one of them, then it will be a point deducted from your writing. Lastly is the tone. After reading the question, you need to determine if you need to write an informal or formal letter, because you need to adjust your tone accordingly. One of you guys used the sentence in the beginning, "Hope you're doing good." I mean, even if you know the person you're writing to, given the topic that we see here, you still need to use a formal tone and this is not an example of a formal tone. So that's not necessary. You can just remove that. Oh, and I almost forgot the word count. They already tell you how many words you need to write, so stay within the range that they already give you. Do not write less and do not write way more, because at the end of the day, you have a limited time. If you write a lot more words than what you need to, you're losing this precious time to maybe just proofread or correct the mistakes that you made. So those are the things you need to keep in mind while writing your letter or your essay. I know this is just a brief overview, so I will post a more in-depth video next time. Now, we finally got to the last part. Here, you'll be able to listen to my feedback on one of your letters. Even though this is just one letter, try to learn from it to improve your own writing skills. Enjoy! So this is the original letter that I received. If you want to read it, you can just pause the video, but I'm just gonna move on to the feedback part. Here you can see some of the changes that I made, but I'll just make a few comments here following the text that you can see on the right side. So firstly, I think the opening should mention the fact that you're requesting a donation rather than just mentioning an invitation to participate. So to change the original sentence, maybe you can write something like, "We would like to invite you to join our mission to support breast cancer survivors." There's also a sentence that used maybe unnatural word. So here the person wrote, "donated famous products." That expression, famous products, is not natural. Maybe you can just say your best products or just their products. Next, the phrase, "a pioneer in charities program." I think that is not clear. You need to be more specific. My suggestion maybe is to use the phrase, "a pioneer in corporate social responsibility," "a pioneer in women's wellness." And one more thing that I want to mention is the reason why I told you guys to always double check your writing earlier, because here the person say, "I hope I accept," but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be, "I hope you accept." So there are still a few more things that maybe I would like to mention, but I think I'm just going to leave you guys to read them on your own. By all means, if you have any questions, feel free to leave your questions on the comment section down below.